This is a product of High Mind, and High Mind will come up with lots of inspired ideas to just improve my overall experience. So, this is a silly example of how I just realized, okay, I'm going to buy this thing, this laptop stand, and put it on top of the table here, and I'll have space underneath, and I'll be able to work comfortably at a nice level. And that's important to me because of the ergonomics. I want to sit comfortably and take care of my posture, take care of the muscles in my neck. I want to be able to have an optimum kind of seating position because the chair in my room isn't that comfortable. I keep trying to adjust it, but it's not quite right. And also, I don't want to be limited to just spend all my time in my room when I'm not seeking work and working itself. So, being downstairs in the living room is nice when I have the place to myself and I'm able to think and get more sunlight through the window. And now I'm starting to use my environment to best suit my needs. And more, I'm creating like updates everywhere. So my focus is now really applying the ability that I have to optimize and to improve using ideas that come through my mind, using scrutiny. I'm looking at this process, everything within myself, and in my ways of actually being productive, using a laptop in a comfortable position, being able to shift it from room to room. In my room, I have my own setup. And so the reason I bring this up is because this is an interesting distraction. And I say that because as I explore these core concepts that I've been talking about, grace, the concept of the aspect of grace and the high aspect, being in a higher state, I'm exploring, letting that come to the forefront more and more. And when I imagine, when I let these thoughts of insight come through, truthful observations about what I'm experiencing within my so called core aspects, the aspect of grace is coming forward way more often and more strongly. And it's simultaneously a process of that coming to the forefront and because of ego letting go more. Because ego has had pretty much predominant control all of our lives. As soon as we're born, we're assigned gender and color association, and people, society will treat us differently, and we grow up completely differently, depending on what our archetypes are and what we're assigned. And so it creates this whole identity for ourselves. And so the whole aspect of self or ego has pretty much been running this show. And so everything that I've done, me, Mark Shikada, everything that I've done has been within the realm of the ego mind predominantly. I've been recently getting much more in touch with the aspect of body and getting connected with myself in that regard. And so overall, I'm expanding my associations with what comprises of myself. And so far, it's reached this journey, this point in the journey where I am allowing so much inspiration to come through and come out documented and then written out, and a like a diagram of sorts, an ideology and a philosophy all coming together of sorts in a visual fashion that I'm going to share soon, of concepts and notions with the labeling. Everything like that is a combination of ego, the pre-existing ego, and the mind working together as a powerhouse to be able to understand everything. So whatever we focus on, and I've been focusing on self and what makes me me, and who am I, and what do I want, and all of these profound introspective questions I've been asking of myself. And I find that more and more in a higher state, it comes to the forefront that truth is the way forward, because you can't truly know yourself unless you are honest. And it takes radical bravery to be radically honest. And what that means is that's just the beginning of coming out of your shell being predominantly your ego. That's the shell. And when you attune the aspect of grace within a higher state, within a higher frequency, within a higher energy condition, I don't know how to really describe it, but it's in a higher state. So you can call it your higher self. It takes away from the grand, mystical, spiritual, cosmic ideology of a higher self being some like super thing. Not necessarily. Everything is on a spectrum, and I'm talking about just attuning a higher self. So it's not like a one, genius, formless, piece of perfection, piece of God or consciousness. I'm just talking about a grade higher, and you can fluctuate along that frequency to your comfort. But when you attune a higher frequency, you are able to attune grace. And when I not discuss because it's just me and the camera right now, but when I will get into conversations, but right now just monologues about my relationship with grace, the story and the narrative comes out that grace is effectively like my sibling, and grace has a feminine energy, and grace is not necessarily personified as anything in particular. It's more subjective. Grace will be whatever she needs to be in order for me, ego, and mind ultimately to wrap my head around it and come out with the right kind of formulative language. Is that grace will just be whatever she needs to be or they need to be for me to help me come out of my shell as ego, as attachment to the concept of self, of form, and allow formlessness and truth and inspiration and creativity and all of that stuff, imagination, play, all of this wonderful thing is in the aspect of grace. It's in that area. And the more that I allow ego and mind to let go and just allow these ideas to come through, they come through the aspect of grace. And so then in a grace mind or a high mind, I'm able to not only conceive unimaginable, like grand, interconnected things, I'm not only able to like briefly comprehend them and have enough time to try and like document them somehow, but if I carry on in a high mind state or a grace mind state, I can see so much brilliance. And it's the process of letting go from ego that helps grace and idea and creativity come through. But it's the relationship between ego mind and grace mind that is contentious, because ego mind as your most likely as your default state, unless you are higher up on the spectrum, in which case your default state might be closer to being in a grace state or a high state. But for most of us, for the societies and the limitations and the parameters of what's okay and what's not okay, what's good and what's bad, um, this this society and culture that we've built over a dichotomy has been very limited in its introspection and very limited in its ability to be blinded and be ignorant about much more deeper, important core values and perspectives and truths. We deny so many truths to ourselves, and we continue, and then we build a culture around that that makes it acceptable to lie and to be in denial and to always be defensive and to do all this, all based around the ego. Everything is based around the ego. Once you start using the same word and you see it around everywhere and you see it within yourself and you read fantastic books like A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle, I recommend anyone within their right mind space to read that book in particular. And The Power of Now is amazing also. Obviously, I take so much inspiration from both of those. They've forever permeated my experience. But what I'm talking about with the relationship between ego and grace is that they're siblings. They're brother and sister. Grace is the older sister. Ego is the younger brother. That's my story, right? It can change in your experience. You can see the different characters have different character traits, but this is the story of resource coming through. It's the narrative of me, Mark, identifying as this person that you see before you. But the concept of ego is this attachment of this self, this form. And then the notion of having grace come through as another personification in order for ego mind to better understand narrative, better understand things, because we're not all scientists. We can't all understand in the same capacity, but storytelling seems to have a grounded, really high performing ability to carry information, carry knowledge and forms of understanding, so that we can use that to our advantage and we can grow and we can evolve. We can, all kind of raise the bar and advance to the next stage, evolve a bit, grow up a bit. And I think ego in general in our society just needs to grow up a bit. And by a bit, I mean a lot. And our ability to start opening our eyes to other things that's going on, to voices that have been gone unlistened to. They've been heard, but pushed to the side, ignored, misunderstood. And this is all part of the same journey that I'm abstractly talking about. It's life. It's our involvement with it. It's our involvement with ourselves. It's our pursuit of understanding and betterment. And as an escape, as a form of healing, as a form of connection, as just a pursuit of everything. We're trying to better ourselves, right? And we're trying to take care of ourselves. And we realize that war is bullshit and all this politics is all bullshit, and we could live in such a better way of life. Our attention, our focus, and where we should focus our energies are spread throughout everywhere. And it's just so much going on. And we are at the same time completely enthralled within ourselves. And by that I mean ego, the ego mind experience. Body's going along for the ride. Will might be conjured to enact lots of things, but generally speaking, from my experience anyway, as a male, I have been experiencing these kind of things, and I've come across these terms, these ideas, these concepts, and I've given them these labels. And in a roundabout way, I keep distracting myself with optimizations and, you know, process improvements, because I find myself doing that whenever I'm in a higher state. And when I'm in a higher state, I always feel um, guilty and judged, solely because the use of recreational drugs is largely like frowned upon and misunderstood. And so my ego attaches itself with this process of microdosing and using that as a way to connect to grace and connect to creativity and connect to just being able to be more of my higher self effectively, really effectively. And I don't want it to be a burden. I don't want to feel guilty about it. I don't want it to be illegal. Um, so I'm reluctant to allow myself to go into it more and, you know, document it. And I'm also self conscious about the um, perception of losing one's sanity or becoming schizophrenic or showing signs of like having some multiple personality disorder when I start entering into this vocabulary and treatment through the medium of narrative to describe myself. A part of myself as ego, and a part of myself as mind, and also a part of myself as grace, and a part of myself as body, and all of this stuff, and will. And so when I start giving them voices inside my head, when mind is trying to understand things, and with the help of ego's tendency to personify things and to make it all about ego, uh, ego best understands when it's about humanoids, when it's about people. And so if you build a character and some characteristics and some tendencies, you can better identify what it is that you're talking about. If you make it as if it's a human, as if it's a pet, an animal, if you know, so that kind of associative narrative forming is happening. And I'm, for some reason, self conscious about lots of steps along the way, through my acknowledgements of whatever I'm being told, whatever concepts that mind is struggling to like identify and to verbalize. This whole time, I keep fluttering between ego mind and high mind or grace mind. And along the journey, grace seems to have a voice. Grace, not an audible voice, but when grace is allowed to come to the forefront, that is again simultaneously ego has to let go of control, because that's partly what ego is about. It's controlling. When ego starts to let go and let grace come to the forefront, ego is scared, because ego is about self-preservation. And so because ego is so like enthralled in itself, whenever it talks about self, it doesn't accommodate or is not aware of all the other aspects. And so ego doesn't talk about we. Ego talks about me. And even my definition of me is flawed. Right? So as grace comes to the forefront, grace has a certain way of putting things very bluntly, very matter of factly. But it sounds very abstract to the ego mind, because we are so the mind is a machine almost, it's ego's friend, it's ego's machine. And by that I mean, if you were to give it a human characteristic, it's like mind is the nerdy friend of ego, according to ego. You know, the truth will come out later, but for now, for the sake of narrative, that's what it needs to be. That's what it appears to be, right? Mind is like the the really smart, really like really hungry for knowledge part of you. It's your mind. My mind is like that, is hungry for knowledge. But your mind might be slightly different. But for narrative to give it like a stereotypical characteristic, yeah, it's the hungry for knowledge element, and it's ego's friend according to ego, because they've been working together a lot, and they always go together everywhere. They're best of friends, so much so that they've just become one, right? Their relationship is so close that they've just become one. And that's how ego sees it. And the body too. You know, the body is the one who doesn't really have a voice, but body communicates to you through all of your sensory systems and through all of your, self-contained self physically. Your body sends you all these signals all the time, but it doesn't necessarily have a linguistic voice, but it does have character. And so when you get to know your body, it'll start speaking to you, and you'll be able to have a much closer relationship with your body. And that's why I'm focusing again on the attempts to try and make these concepts come to life through dedicated forms of like workshops, in order to, oh man, I'll make another recording about the meeting I had recently about connecting to your body at workshops. That's more experimental and not necessarily related to bachata. But that's a little teaser. That's something in the works, which is going to be a huge passion project. But this is kind of spanning from this bigger story, this bigger narrative that's going on, that I'm alluding to abstractly, is that I'm having so much stuff going on through simple observation, and through having created a lot of time and space for myself to be introspective and to be more observant, and to take the time and care and like empathy it needs for relationships within me to my other aspects, acknowledging their existence, becoming more aware of their existence, and then becoming more aware of their personalities and their traits and how that comes out in my life, and how I've been so ignorant about their presence, let alone their significance and their powers. And this is all the story of resource, which is re is just an abbreviation to symbolize the return, like returning. Redoing something is also a repeating. So return, repeat, it's summarized as re dot. And I want to make that as a brand. And I want to put all of these ideas underneath this big whatever project that I'm building. And this segment was, in a roundabout way, talking about the emergence of grace being allowed to take the mic and talk. And it's the idea of transforming, or rather maybe adding to, I don't know, or creating a new podcast where it's different from Re.MARK.S diary, because I don't know if I can do it. I don't know if I can fully allow grace to just keep coming to the forefront. It's scary for me. It's scary for ego, because ego, I don't know, ego's still like hanging on. There's something about something still about being in states of high that's just so scary. And because I know that it's been self-induced with microdosing, this I'm still cautious to not disclose too much of my authentic processes. I'm still holding back, and that's okay. That is also true. That is also something very true. And admissions of truth are very welcome. I can't be expected to just jump in at a deep end and go all out. That might be seen as a mental breakdown or whatever it is. And so it's too easy to take down and to dismiss as being in the realm of too much and too crazy. You've gone beyond. So I still want to be accepted, and I still want to be respected enough that people will still listen at least, or try to. But this is, again, more for me. It's a documentation of just it's my diary. It's my visual diary. It's my vlog. So if anyone does care to watch, good for you. In the future, I will have more formats, which is going to condense things. So and then I'll have more conversations with other people. So it's not allowed for me to just keep rambling and losing track as I fluctuate between different states. It's tiring and it's confusing. But yeah, I was going to start announcing that I'm going to let, in the brief moments of a much higher self frequency, Grace does have more of a strong voice inside my mind. Again, not audially, not verbally, but I'm allowing a voice to Grace, as ego. And it's a hard process because it relates back to what I just said about reasons why I feel like I may be going too far and I'm scared. And I'm realizing that within myself. But also at the same time, I realize that, man, these limitations are bullshit. They are such bullshit. But why are they so prevalent? And it's full circle. I'm talking about the same thing. This ego world that we've built, it's really got us in a hold in so many different ways. And I'm just documenting my internal emancipation, if you will, of ego just started to let go more and more and let other aspects come to the forefront, and then just watch them and better understand them and better connect with them and form better relationships with ourselves. And I haven't talked about will, I haven't talked about soul, I haven't really talked much about body, but these are all the 6 aspects of self, with awareness or true you in the middle as I don't know, consciousness itself. It's the portal, it's the pupil in which it observes the world. And in my visual imagery that I will release about the core aspects, real you, or awareness, or consciousness, it's like the pupil of the eye, and these aspects are different colored. It's a color wheel. It's like the iris. And so your awareness keeps going between different aspects. And within your focus being on any given aspect at any given time, usually it's not just one at a time. Usually we're straining ourselves and we're stressing ourselves because, I believe, we are running multiple aspects at the same time. And so we are kind of overloading our mind and our system. And this is only high hardware, biological hardware. There's only so much we can push it. Our world demands that we keep pushing and keep demanding so much of ourselves, all of ourselves at the same time. And so that's leading to burnout and exhaustion. And that's the way I see it. Okay, that's the way it's coming to me, and that's the way I'm observing it. And so yes, I want to keep talking about resource, and I want to help ego let go more, and I want to help other people let go more. And in a way, I am embarrassing myself greatly every step of the way, but I do also feel that that is something else that's of great value, pushing yourself outside your comfort zone. And what really is your comfort zone? Well, that's probably the shell of the ego. That's the comfort zone. So wherever you're pushing through that shell. And that's the way I see it. And I think it will be a healthy thing for others to see it in this way too. So yeah, I wanted to talk about a lot of things, but as you know, this is not the best format for organization.